So many times, a salesperson may try to be everything to everyone, and then you fall on your face. When talking with prospects, it's important to understand what their corporate culture is driving towards. Do they have a singular focus of just cutting budget, or do they have a more holistic, inclusive approach? It's our job as a salesperson to kind of identify what road that is and how to bring the right solutions to them.
All right, welcome to another episode of Relocation Leader. I'm your host, Zac Turbes, and today we have the very lovely Ginny Taylor, our VP of Global Client Development at NEI Global Relocation. Welcome, Ginny.
Hi, Zac. Great to be here. Thank you.
Now, Ginny, you have been in the relocation industry for quite some time, I think since 1987. Why don't you give us a synopsis of kind of what's the breadth of your experience in this industry?
Oh my goodness. It started out in a destination specialist role, working for one of the largest banks in Texas, where I'm originally from. And then I moved into the title and mortgage side from there. Then found my home in an RMC community and stayed there for, gosh, many years in my career. Then I decided to stretch out and grow on the broker side, and I ran a relocation division department for a couple of different large brokers in the Texas market, and then found my way back home to the RMC world, and here I am now at NEI. So I've kind of touched on everything in the industry except maybe temporary living. So, but I have a lot of friends who do that, so I feel like I know that as well.
So you're like the relocations version of a Renaissance woman then.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And you also have some pretty cool hobbies, I hear.
I do. I like to create and design jewelry. So when I have a few moments to spare, I will go into my workroom and I will start creating some great designs. And I've been fortunate. I've been in Vogue and Elle and GQ and Condé Nast Traveler. So I enjoy it. It's my sanity. It keeps me going, and it's a quick fix to immediate satisfaction. Taking a blank sheet of sterling and gold and creating something beautiful from it.
So I'm curious, does your creativity with your art have any overlap with anything you do with relocation here?
Being in sales the majority of my career, I would say, almost 99% of the time, you have to be creative in coming up with solutions and ideas and quote unquote designs that meet your clients or prospective clients' needs. So I would say absolutely 100%.
The clients arrive at a beautiful solution.
I try every time.
So with your background being pretty extensive, why do you think you found a home in with RMCs in particular?
It's kind of nice to be on the top of the leaderboard. And the RMC truly is that right hand to the corporation. You're almost like the orchestra leader. You have all the different components, whether it be household goods or temporary living or settling in service or language training or home sale and home sale assistance. You're orchestrating and creating all of that to come into harmony with each other. And you're bringing that forward to the client to create that win-win that they're looking for, often very desperately. So it's just a perfect blend between the two.
And so with your level of experience and your, understanding of the industry at large, kind of what led you to NEI? Probably have a job anywhere in the business, but why NEI? Why now?
Well, it's funny. I've always teased Pam Jacknet, my boss, that it only took me 20 years to get here. It was a timing thing, actually. I've always enjoyed NEI, having worked especially on the broker side, being one of your supplier partners and seeing how great a care that you take with your supplier partners compared to other RMCs that maybe don't treat you as equally or nicely or as respectfully as NEI does. And two, the reputation of NEI is sterling in the industry. And, it's known across the board. We don't lose our clients. We don't lose our employees. We have longevity. We have the financial strength. You don't hear the mergers and acquisitions that you do of so many other players in the market today. This is a solid, strong, successful company, and I couldn't wait to be part of it.
What do you think now, having been on the inside with NEI, what makes NEI solid, strong, successful in your mind?
Starts at the leadership, starts at the top of the helm there with great leaders that we have today. They have set the precedents, they've set the expectations, they've written the visions and the goals for all of us to adhere to. They are all achievable and attainable. And the company treats you with such respect and support. There's nothing we lack for from a sales team. Everything that we could imagine or hope to have, it's there or it can be created quickly for us. So again, it just starts with that paramount leadership that we have here.
You understand really quick that, principles mean something to this company. And, when it starts with, Kate Dodge and Sandy and everything that they gave. And, now with Nate at the helm, this is a very, I want to say like a tight ship, like it's no fun, but we run a tight ship around here. And it's really nice to see how everyone can get behind a vision when it's clearly articulated.
This is a well-grounded company, and they know exactly what they do best, and they don't try to be something they're not. And that is a huge breath of fresh air because in sales, so many times a salesperson may try to be everything to everyone, and then you fall on your face. You stumble. You can't be everything to everyone. But NEI has identified who they are, and they know it so well. And like you said, it's rooted in ethics and principles and vision. You can't go wrong with NEI. It is. I wish I were 20 years younger and could stay 20 years longer. Actually, with the company. Although I have no clue on wanting to retire anytime soon. So
Nice. Well, I have a few questions. So this podcast topic, we really wanted to sort of bring it to like, how do you think holistically about relocation? So I'm going to kick it to you. Do you think that you can sort of explain to us what it even means to think holistically about relocation in particular?
relocation is a very unique industry in the fact that it touches so many sub industries and brings them together under one umbrella, so to speak. And when talking with prospects, it's important to understand what their understanding is of the holistic approach and what their corporate culture is driving towards, and identifying if do they have a singular focus of just cutting budget and cutting dollars and not caring what the long-term ROI might be? Or do they have a more holistic, inclusive approach to relocation? And maybe, yes, we want to be a great program, a strong program, but we also understand we don't have to spend every dollar in the bank to get that positive result from the employees. So you can kind of go one road or the other. And it's our job as a salesperson kind of identify what road that is and how to bring the right solutions to them. So that would be kind of my holistic approach with them.
What I think is like, we've all done holistic thinking before, and usually like we have the experience of thinking holistically with regards to our life. You have your physical health, you have, finances, professional, spiritual, if you kind of go headlong into one area, you get out of balance in all the rest. And so you can never just kind of put all your chips on one thing. There may be times in your life where you emphasize one thing over other things just to make, progress or to, restore balance or something like that. But I think the same thinking applies to relocation, right? Like, people are focusing on, being cost effective, but if you go too far in that direction, then you start, noticing you start faltering in other directions. So, can you speak to sort of what some of those areas are and kind of, what insight you could give along those lines?
Yeah, it's not uncommon to see when procurement steps into an RFP process, that the whole mood of the process changes significantly. They become so dollar centric or dollar focused. And unfortunately, for many corporations, procurement is used to bidding on widgets. Is it spark plugs or is it ceiling lights or how many crates of this can I get for this? And they kind of bring that thought process with them to an RFP, and it starts peeling away from the human element. And that's when they start getting so focused on bottom line cost, because that's their job, is to get the cost as low as they can. They don't realize how they're damaging the long-term success of a program and the satisfaction that an employee may not have at that point. Because within the relocation industry, you as I've said previously, you can have a very good, very strong program without having to spend every dollar in the bank. And it's working correctly with your RMC to make sure that the process is kept as a package rather than siloed out as just a budgetary item. And I would say that's probably the one thing that we grapple with a lot, is keeping that marriage together once HR steps out and procurement steps in, and we have to go through the negotiations at that time.
It's also interesting too because especially when dealing with procurement, a lot of the times you're only dealing with the costs that you can count, right? But there's a lot
Correct.
of costs that you can't count necessarily, or it's harder to count when you're talking about how a relocation package or program can affect things like retention or other areas of productivity, depending on the person you're relocating or the group that you're relocating, their impact, the broader impact that can be, achieved by successfully managing a relocation can far outweigh in terms of cost what you would have spent otherwise by trying to just, nickel and dime. And so it's tough because when dealing with indirect or soft costs like that, it's hard to quantify. And so, to make your decision, you sort of have to trust the process a little bit more. But there definitely is a cost. Just because it's harder to count doesn't mean it's not there.
There is no price equal to happiness and success. And a good, well-constructed, cost-effective relocation program is going to deliver on that long-term success and happiness for that employee. And as long as you don't lose that element, and you hear about technology and how everybody has to have technology to do this and to do this and to do this. But I think what NEI emphasizes so well to our clients and to our prospective clients is that the technology we have is to enhance the human element and to take that tedious work off and have it more automated, where we can spend more time one-on-one with a transferee or the family with the transferee and keep that human element involved and attached to their life and building on that successful move. Where if, again, you get so rigid in the cost factor, you may be pulling some of that away because time is money, and the time and money that we have to spend towards getting that ROI developed for you could be hindered, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And the technology portion too, like it's only useful technology if it improves the human experience. And
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
and we know just from experience that the most effective way to improve the human experience is by involving other humans. Technology is there to optimize the human experience and that interaction. But if you totally remove it, then it could, you know, frustrations abound or can abound. Everyone's had that experience where they call somebody and they're expecting a person, they get an automated machine and they just hit zero right away. because they want to talk to a real human.
Well, the nice thing about NEI, and this is just a Ginny-ism that I always like to say, is that we are not a voicemail friendly company. We want your transferees to talk to a member of their team who's familiar with their policy and their program, who's been made aware and has embraced their company's culture and knows what the expectations are. So I think one of the ways that we really stand apart from many of our competitors is just that fact alone, that we want you talking to someone on the team on a 24/7, 365 basis when at all possible, at every chance possible.
Yeah. And, while we're speaking about technology, we'd be remiss if we didn't point out, there's many companies grappling with, remote work. And, maybe through the pandemic, they shifted to, very heavy on remote work. And now, post pandemic, and since we're all kind of back to, more normal times, then
Mm.
they're trying to figure out how do we strike that balance. And, with relocation, I'm just curious. Um, is what is the relevance of relocation in a post, COVID era, in a remote work era, when companies are trying to grapple with productivity and trying to understand how to manage their workforce given all these technological tools?
That's a great question. I wish I had a crystal ball to give you the best answer possible for that. But from what I'm seeing right now up in my region that I cover, which is the Northeast, we're seeing more and more people coming back into the offices today, which is giving us that pre-new norm again, pre-COVID. And I think what we're going to see in our area is more activity, more relocation coming from that, um, because of that re-centralization back into hub offices.
It's interesting to me because, it comes down to, like, there's lots of factors. Like, this is a very complex thing to think about because you have some people, like some parts of your workforce who are very comfortable with remote work and they get all
Mhm.
the technology tools, and maybe they're a little bit more introverted, and they actually, it energizes them to just be secluded like that. And then you have people, um you know on the other side of things, where like they really do enjoy the collaboration. And so if you switch those people, put the introvert in the office and the extrovert at home, now you have a productivity nightmare, you know?
Right.
And, so there's companies that are trying to figure out, like, how are we flexible enough to be able to accommodate, our workforce so that we can get the best productivity, right? And then you're also trying to figure out, like, retention. Do we offer this for retention purposes? Or, like, do we as a company want to set a standard because we're trying to build a culture, and we don't feel like we can build a culture unless you're here to participate. So, like, it is a very complex issue.
It is. It is. But companies have now had several years to kind of weed through it, and figure out what works best for them. And, it's getting the right people on the right bus in the right place at the right time. And so, you do see people who work beautifully from home. I mean, look at salespeople. They've been remote forever. It seems to be their cup of tea.
Mhm.
Even though I wouldn't call them introverts, they are a little bit of an extrovert in many cases. But they do understand the technology and how it works and how to make it work for them extremely well. But you still can see corporations picking those folks up, moving them, even though they may not even go into that hub office, they still need them in that market close by where that hub is so they can do whatever that position and job has required of them to do and to bring them there. So you see a real good mix of everything right now.
So you think companies are figuring it out, and that, through the pandemic and, post pandemic, we are understanding how to optimize this remote work, work from the office thing.
Yes, I do. I do. I think we're seeing what I would call a settlement shift. You know, everybody's they've gone totally remote. Now they've brought some people back in. Now you see a hybrid of different things. And I think going forward, you're going to continue to see that hybrid. Everything, the dust has settled. This is what's working well. We've identified those that can work well. We have identified those that can't work well remotely. Let's get the shift going and shift going straight. and and make it work for the company now. We know where we're going.
Thank you for clarifying that, by the way.
Yes, I said that so quick. I was afraid people might understand.
Oh man. So I'm curious then. So with the option of remote work, what makes companies still move forward with like, remote work is an option, but we really want to have this be an on-site position, or like like what is the thing that keeps companies saying relocation still matters? Let's get that person, the right person here, no matter where they're coming from.
It's talent driven, 100%. They have to have the right person for the right job. And a person who's working remote may be the only person who has that type of master's degree, or may only be the person who has those years of experience in neurons or whatever it may be that they're developing or building. Um, they're going to do whatever they need to do to make that employee happy, get them to the new location, whether they do work in the office or work nearby. They need them for that job. And so you're seeing that push for key talent driving a lot today.
Yes. And so when you're meeting with a company and you're trying to help them think holistically, how do you do it? How do you get them to recognize what all the areas are that they need to think about to actually build a program that meets their needs?
Well, it's very concise conversation. It's being able to address their needs again and identify their gaps, learning what is the strong point of their program, what would they like best case scenario to be at the end of the day, and then helping them understand who their stakeholders are. And it starts with those employees and working back. Most people would say, oh, well, we're going to start with what senior management wants and drill down from there. But at the end of the day, the reason you're relocating that person is for that talent that they bring to the company and for that position. So the best thing to do is start with the needs of those employees and work up from there, bringing in all the different stakeholders and their needs to go along with it. Then really helping them identify or maybe ask the questions they haven't even thought of yet, to go back and to say, do we really need this? No, wait a minute. We're leaving this out. This is so critical. Let's make it part of this component. And then having the reinforcement from their RMC partner to help them present that to their senior management, or having their RMC partner with them to make that presentation to their senior management to justify why the cost might be such, or why we want to add intercultural training or destination services to help with the long-term ROI that you're going to receive from this person. It's really starts with the employee and coming back full from there.
Yeah, because if you start with that vision, and that vision is, well defined, it's centered around the experience you want to create for that employee, then from there, like you said, it's searching out the stakeholders, making sure that you have everyone at the table who is capable and has an interest in accomplishing that vision, and then making sure that with an RMC that you have a plan to be able to justify the expenditure or the action to the people who will ultimately make the decision.
Yeah, and a lot of it comes from just how we end up structuring the policy that they're working with. We have this wonderful iSelect program here, which is our core flex program. And, that is so appealing to many of the companies I'm visiting with today, because they've always run from maybe a traditional program, a prime type program, where everything is included from A to Z. And it can be very costly to do that. And maybe not all of those elements or services are being utilized effectively. Maybe the employees that are being offered educational assistance they don't need it. Their kids are grown and gone. So an I Select program where we're talking about a core of basic services that every employee would get. So maybe 3 or 4 services, and then a flex program on the side where those employees can go in and pick the services that mean something to them and their personal family needs. That's a great way to maybe help lower some costs for the company, but still obtain that positive satisfaction from those employees because they now had a voice and an input to the program. And so it may help overall achieve both a win-win for both parties, the company and the employee.
So when you're thinking about being a holistic thinker, I'm curious, do you have any favorite thinkers who you think are great holistic thinkers?
Do I have any thinkers who think they're great holistic thinkers
Yeah,
from a corporate
your
perspective
favorite.
or just in general or
Could be anyone. Do you recognize anyone who's a very holistic thinker, and you would think, man, this person is admirable for those qualities?
well, I would absolutely have to say our new president and CEO, Michelle Moore, would be probably right at the top of that list. Although she comes from a finance background, she looks at the whole picture and makes it so easy for us in sales to work with. I would say she's right there at the top of my list today. So
Nice. Is there a time at your life where you felt that you had to think holistically, and what was the result of that?
I would say every day I have to think holistically in everything that I do. Because as soon as I get up in the morning and I'm in at my office, or if I'm, traveling on a business trip, I'm always thinking of the whole picture. What's the conversation going to be? What if it goes this direction? What if it goes this direction? How do we bring it all together? And at the end of the day, where it really comes true is when the client or the prospective client says, we choose you, NEI, to be our partner. Then I know that I have been the best at being holistic and meeting all their needs that I can. So that's what, gets me excited every day.
Nice. And so, last question. In thinking about, how do you make sure your bases are covered everywhere, you know, you have to also think about the future. So is there anything on the horizon that you see is coming, that is going to be something that the relocation industry or, corporates will have to factor into what they are thinking about in terms of their program, or just the job market in general?
I think what I'm hearing a lot of conversation about is the development of the AI or a chat GPT, something along those lines. I think it's going to make an impact in the industry. I think as robotics become more commonplace every day, there will be a shift in some job functions. I think we're going to see um, just that development of a better, faster way to maybe approach resolution or negotiations through the use of tools like this once they've been tried and tested. These are conversations I'm hearing at every regional meeting. How is it going to impact our company? If you look at the big automotive industry that's up in my market, that's a huge conversation for them right now. It could be localized to each region across the US, what it really impacts them. But I think I can speak to my area. It's going to be that technology and the AI and the chat GPT and where it takes the development of the HR and relocation and mobility industry overall.
Nice. Are you gonna get a personal robot when it's available?
Yeah, I would love one. I've always said I need a husband, or I need a wife or something, do all those things while I'm gone.
Yeah, I remember watching one of my favorite movies was I, Robot with Will Smith.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, it just looks so cool that, like, why'd they have to go and mess it up, you know?
could you please just mop the floor for me over here, please?
Exactly. I'm gonna go to the
Yeah,
beach.
yeah,
Well,
that would be great.
it was super nice having you on, Ginny. Thank you so much for coming and sharing your insight, all the wisdom that you've sort of accumulated over the years. And we want to, encourage anyone who has questions about relocation to definitely reach out to Ginny and make her your resource and your trusted advisor.
Thank you, Zach. It's been my pleasure. Let me know if I can answer any questions someone has.
Thank you guys for joining us on another episode of Relocation Leader, and we will see you back in 2 weeks.